Hello everyone, so welcome to our new LWC learning series. So in this series you are going to understand LWC in a much more simpler language, and we are going to cover the advanced things as well so that a 10-year-old can also understand. What we are going to cover in this lecture is what is frameworks, what is web standard, web stack transformation, why LWC when we already have Aura framework, coexistence and interoperability. Let's go ahead. So you might have seen this image somewhere in your life, but you never understand all the jargons that is all over the internet. So we are going to make it simpler so that you can understand everything and you don't have to remember anything. We are going to understand in next few slides what it all means, but so I just want to give you a high level beforehand, right? So let's talk about 2014. In 2014, in the web standard, we have ECMAScript event standard element rendering, right? And on the frameworks, we have a lot of things like data services, templates, modules, and all those things. So developers will hugely rely on frameworks rather than using the web standard, right? What happens in 2019 is like web standards get evolved. Now you have the templates in the web standard in 2019, but earlier it was only on the frameworks. If you want to build the templates, you have to use frameworks in 2014. But now in 2019, all the things are included in the web standard. Not all the things, some are still there on the frameworks, right? So Salesforce took this opportunity, seeing all the web standard is kind of growing. It took the opportunity to build Lightning Web Component. It is also a framework, but it supports the modern web standard. You might have heard this statement somewhere: Lightning Web Component follow the modern web stack. What it means, like whatever web standard that we have currently, Lightning Web Component is following it. You can use HTML template, you can use modules and anything that is on the web standard into your Lightning Web Component, right? Let's talk a bit about Aura for a second, right? So Aura is built on it only supports ECMAScript 5. So all the latest version of ECMAScript 5 that is evolved as part of web standard is not supported on Aura. So this is one of the reason also like why LWC is better and it follow the modern web stack. Aura does not follow the modern web stack. So we are going to learn about the differences later part in this video as well, but I just wanted to give you the high level what we are going to see in this video, right? So let's go ahead. So we talk about the web standard, but what is actually a web standard? So it is basically a set of rules and technologies that all web browsers follow to ensure applications run consistently across browsers and developers don't have to write different code for each browser. So what it means, like let's say you have a Netflix, right? So you open the Netflix in Chrome, you open it in Microsoft Edge, you see the same page, right? So it is because every browser follows the modern web standard. So you don't have to write different code for different browsers. It's all the same thing, right? So it is kind of a basic rules that everyone has to follow in order to build application in a much more simpler language. Let's talk about web standard in 2014. We have the event, which is the key down, mouse over. You might have used these things in the JavaScript. What are standard elements? These are div, span, button. These are called as standard elements. Renders refers how HTML and CSS processed and displayed in browser. ECMAScript 5, which was the standard of JavaScript at that time, at 2014, right? So these were the things included in the web standard in 2014. But what are the drawbacks? So this gentleman has some question like, wow, web standard in 2014 has so many things, because we are talking about 2014. Those are like big number in 2014, right? But why developers didn't like it, right? So let's understand it with the help of an example. Like we have the ECMAScript 5 at that time, right? Does not support classes, modules or promises. So let's compare the promises of what we have on the ECMAScript 6, right? So in ECMAScript 6, it was the promises was introduced and this is a sample example of how to use promises. If you want to use the promises in ECMAScript 5, which does not existed at that time, developers can however achieve it by using callbacks or third-party libraries, right? But it also has some problems like nesting callbacks makes code hard to read and maintain. So all these things are much more harder for a developer to kind of build when we don't have these things in the web standard. But with the evolution of ECMAScript and JavaScript, these things become more easier and convenient for the developers as well. The other drawbacks are the no virtual DOM. So what is a virtual DOM? In the web standard 2014, there was no virtual DOM. What it means, like whatever changes you are doing, it is happening on the real DOM. So let's understand it with the help of this example. Suppose this is a website, right? So it is called as a real DOM. Whatever changes you have to do, everything gets erased and the new changes will get applied in the whole website, right? But with the virtual DOM, if we have the virtual DOM, what it will does is, like, it will, let's say you did some changes in this real DOM, right? So it will create a virtual DOM first rather than making changes in the real DOM. And what it will do, it will only change those parts where the changes are applied. So why it is helpful is because it will render the page fast, right? So this was not supported in Web Standard 2014, but it was eventually get supported in with the evolution of Web Standard. Standard HTML elements like div, span, button, etc. were primary building blocks. Customizing events required extensive coding in CSS and JavaScript, and reusability of UI component was not supported natively. So we all know, like, these are the standard elements, but if you want to reuse something, if you want to build your own custom tag, that was not quite possible with the web standard in 2014, right? Even if you want to customize elements, it will require a lot amount of code in CSS and JavaScript, right? So these are some of the drawbacks. Let's go ahead. So since web standard do not support many features and developer relied heavily on custom frameworks that is also built by developers, of course. So because as we already seen, like, web standard has a very limited, let's go back. You already seen here, like, web standard has very limited thing here, right? So developer has to rely on frameworks heavily in order to implement these things, like in order to build templates or use data services, UI components. So developer has to rely on frameworks. So what are some of the frameworks we have? AngularJS is a framework, Backbone.js, Ember.js, Aura. Aura is also a framework which supports ECMAScript 5, as we already discussed. But the problem with these framework is, like, developer has to learn framework specific approaches, because if you know Angular, you cannot code in Backbone.js. If you know Backbone, you cannot code in Aura. You have to learn every framework individually in order to implement it. So it is very hard for developer to, like, switch between frameworks. In order to learn new things, they have to start from the scratch at all, right? So that's why a developer did not like the frameworks, but they don't have any options either. If you want to see all the things that is included in the frameworks, you can see all these definitions: data services to fetch and manage data, UI components, predefined building blocks for user interface, and all those things. We are not going into much depth because these are not as much necessary as the LWC videos are concerned. Okay, so now we have the transition, right? Transition from 2014 to 2019. You can see now web standard includes all these things. You have the templates, modules, and everything. And frameworks are doing only few things, like data services, like fetching data from server or sending data. So these are still These are still happening with the help of frameworks, but the dependency on the framework is reduced, right? So the question is, Lightning Web Component is also a framework introduced by Salesforce. What is so special in Lightning Web Component? It is also a framework. So if you see, Lightning Web Component focuses on native browser capabilities rather than reinventing them. As we know, like Lightning Web Component follows the web standard, right? So you don't have to learn a lot of things because it uses all the modern web standard, right? Like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you all know, and it also uses the modern JavaScript, right? Like the ECMAScript 6 and whatever we have the latest, it is using that. It also provides out of the box security for Salesforce environment, so you don't have to think about security as well. So this Lightning Web Component framework is having the security Lightning data services, which is used to fetch data from the Salesforce base Lightning component. You have different tags which you can use as a base component. So these things which were not possible in Aura, like Aura does not support the modern web standard, it supports ECMAScript 5. So that was one of the drawback of using the Aura component. If you have to learn LWC and if you have to learn Aura, it would be much more easier to learn LWC than to learn Aura framework, because it is completely different, man. Coexistence and interoperability. So Aura component and LWC component can exist on the same page, right? So suppose you have one page, so you can have Aura component in that page also, and you can have Lightning Web Component as well. The other thing is, we can include LWC inside Aura components, but not vice versa. What it means is, like Aura component, you can add a Lightning Web Component inside Aura component, but you cannot do the reverse. Like if you have the Lightning Web Component, can you able to add Aura component inside of it? You cannot do it. So this is like the thing, this is the only thing you have to remember. So as part of this video we are done, but we are coming up with how to set up VS Code for LWC and all the things that is included in LWC. We are going to understand in the later videos. So if you want to watch all the videos that we are posting, please follow us and like this video. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.